this is framed in, so you can see all the Lawrence County sites and buildings we're on. All the Lawrence County sites and buildings that Dan has listed on the state website come up on his website as well as the state. So someone could do a search for the whole state, look for 50,000 square foot building anywhere in the state of Indiana, and our building would show up on that, or they could do a search on Dan's website for a 50,000 square foot building in Lawrence County, and our building would come up there too. So, all right. Do we all feel ready to go forward here? Is that thing running for you?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. Today is Lincoln's birthday, so all hail, great president. It is February 12th, 2026. It is 10 o'clock. This is the second Thursday of the month, which is our usual meeting time. This is the Lawrence County Redevelopment Commission, so we will call this meeting to order. Welcome all. Good to have you with us. We had presented to us an agenda of items for discussion. I'd ask if this agenda suits everyone's purposes, if there's any changes requested or suggested. Seeing none, we'll roughly go with this agenda as provided. The meeting has been called to order. Copy of the minutes from the January meeting were presented to us in advance of the meeting. I'd ask if anyone's had a chance to look those over, wishes to make a motion of approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Rex has made a motion to approve the minutes, and Jack has seconded them. Got a motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Abstention, like sign. Motion passes unanimously 4-0. Next on our agenda are claims that have been presented. We've got a couple of things here. Martha, would you help us with the automobile one to start with?
I will. So back in your January meeting, you approved to pay for part of a police car. The amount that you said was $11,207.95. The actual amount for the RDC is $26,030. We just want to get that on the record that you do approve us to pay that amount.
Okay. And so again, part of what we said last year was in our budget for 2026, we would set aside $200,000 of our funds coming from TIF that we would use to help the county with its budget. And so this is part of that package. So it's an increase from 11,000 to 26,000, you said roughly?
Right.
Okay. Any questions on that one? If not, is there a motion?
I'd entertain a motion to approve.
All right.
I'll second.
So for the car, Wally has made the motion, Jack has seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Abstention, like sign. That motion passes 4-0. Now, we also have a claim from Baker Tilly, somewhere in here. Thank you. Yeah. So this covers several months worth of advice and analysis they've done for us. The total amount is $28,257.14. If you've got questions about this, I would let you know that you see that there's a lot of time that we used up January, February, March, even into April. And that time, primarily, a large amount of that had to do with, at the time, the Heidelberg plant was looking at a carbon capture project that would have been hundreds of millions of dollars of investment. And so Baker Tilly folks did a lot of analysis for us trying to understand what the impact of that would be on the county and the TIF district. And also the IEDC was involved in negotiations, and they were bringing some innovative incentive programs, putting those on the board for us to look at. And so we had to analyze how we would work with the IEDC program or without the IEDC program. Eventually, the current administration withdrew $500 million of proposed federal assistance. The project has kind of gone away. I don't know if it's dead, but it's not going to be around for the next 3 years at least. I'm confident of that. So that is a lot of the work they did. It had to do with a project that potentially involved, what, over $1 billion. At times we were looking at close to $2 billion of investment, and we just needed to have the right information and understand what the best steps were going forward. So, wanted to give you that color commentary on why that number is what it is, in addition to all the other things they do for us. So I would ask if there are any questions on that, and if not, I'd ask if there's a motion to approve the Baker Tilly claim of $28,257.
Motion to approve.
All right, Rex has made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Jack has seconded it. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, like sign, abstention, like sign. Motion passes 4-0. And
I
now,
just do have a comment
Yeah.
on that, Jeff. I did just a quick calculation, and the bill averages a little less than $300 an hour, which is reasonable for the services provided, based on my research.
thank you, appreciate that, you're right. I think,
Thank you for the consideration.
yeah,
Does that sound about right, Heidi?
Yeah, we work in teams, so we have staff manager and then principal who oversee our clients to try to keep the average rate down.
Okay.
So that's not Jack's intent for you to raise your prices.
No.
all right, now we've still got another claim somewhere in here, is that right?
Yes,
All right,
this one's for information technology
There you go.
services.
that's
This is another one that falls in with the 200,000.
Exactly.
This is for security backup.
Yeah. Again, we're looking at elements of county government that support the TIF district and the redevelopment commission's efforts. And so this information technology services is the online cloud backup that the county government uses so that it can function properly. And so we are,
Is this part of our $200,000?
and this is again, yeah, so we'd be at, between
I'll make a
the
motion
two
to
vehicles,
approve
we're
this.
probably at 70, with this 60, we're getting up to around 130 out of the 200 already. Jack, you made a motion?
Yes, sir.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
All right, we've got a second, so motion on the floor, $60,000. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Abstentions, like sign. That motion also passes 4-0. I believe that concludes all of our work on claims. You agree?
I agree.
Okay. Next up is a discussion on the bond issue. We've got an agenda today that's packed with a lot of substance. And usually when I walk into these meetings, I got an idea of what we're going to do. And today I'm just not sure that I know exactly what we're going to do, because there's a lot of things we need to think about and juggle here. And this bond issue is one of the big ones we got to talk about. So before we talk about the bond issue, Heidi has brought us a proposed engagement letter through which we, as the redevelopment commission, would sign an agreement with Baker Tilly to provide scope of work covering the issuance of the securities, the bonds that we're going to be issuing. And so I'd ask, we just handed down copies of this real quickly before the start of the meeting. You can see what the hourly rates are there, Jack, on page 3. And I'd ask if there's any questions or conversation about this that we can ask Heidi, and or if there's a motion to approve this.
Heidi, is this your typical engagement letter?
It is for bonds, yeah, it's a typical scope of work to do a bond issue.
Okay.
Yeah, we
her to go to
Okay.
the mic?
So,
Oh, yeah, when she wants to start her presentation.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and there, Heidi? All right,
I'd make a motion that we.
all right. So on the agenda, we are dealing with the proposed engagement letter with Baker Tilly. There's been a motion from Jack to approve the letter as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Rex has seconded the motion. Any further conversation or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Abstentions, like sign. The motion passes 4-0. Heidi, you're officially engaged.
okay, sounds good. I'm gonna pass out numbers, not sure if you, they're the same probably as the ones you have, the ones you
Yeah.
have just are draft and this has a signature. Numbers have not changed.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Want a copy, Rick?
Okay, well, Heidi Amsball with Baker Tilly. Thank you for having me this morning. So we are here, as Jeff mentioned, we are here to talk about the BOT loan. So, and taking that out. So back in January of 2024, the Redevelopment Commission entered into a Build, Operate, Transfer, or BOT loan to build the Shell building out in the industrial park. And so the way that that was structured is a short-term loan that would have either have been paid off if the building was sold, or we would enter into a long-term bond obligation if the building was not sold within the 5-year term of that BOT loan. So we are within a period of time where when the BOT loan was entered into, there was done hospital fund monies that were set aside to pay the interest payments through February of this year. And those payments have been made, and that those funds will have been depleted. And so because of that, and because the building has not sold yet, then we are ready to enter into the TIF bond issue, the longer-term bond issue, to take out that loan because those monies are gone. And so what I have in front of you today is basically the TIF estimate that will support the TIF bond that is taking out the BOT loan. So what we set up was that as soon as the Lehigh TIF started generating sufficient funds to pay a bond payment, that the bonds would flip over to being paid for with the Lehigh TIF. And so what we have here is a projection of the Lehigh TIF and what a potential bond structure would look like to pay off the BOT loan that is outstanding. And so I'm gonna jump in here, and then we can talk through the details of all of the pieces. So if you want to flip to page 2 of the feasibility that I have in front of you, page 2 and continuing on to page 3 is the TIF estimate from the Lehigh allocation area for the real property, which is the building structures themselves. And so page 2 shows you 2026 through 2030, and then page 3 shows you 2031 through 2036, and the estimated TIF that is generated, or that we are anticipating generating. As you can see, Lehigh's received 6 different abatements with the different pieces of investment that they have made out there. And so this estimate does go out that far so that you can see that abatement rolling off and then that TIF increasing as the abatement is rolling off. And so you can see in 2026, we are estimating a little over 141,000 is going to be generated. And then as all the investment comes on and the abatements roll off, by 2036, we're anticipating a little over 505,000 being generated a year. If you flip to page 4, page 4 represents the personal property TIF, or the equipment within the building, the TIF that's generated off of that. Personal property is assessed quite differently than real property as it's self-reported, but you can see that in 2026 we are estimating about 496,000 of TIF just from the equipment, and that increases as, again, the abatements roll off out to 2036. We are anticipating about 3.27 million of TIF annually to be generated off of the equipment. The following page, on page 5, is accumulation of both of those TIF streams, so you can see them side by side. How much TIF the real and personal property is estimated to generate from 2026. This shows you out to 2051. So it is a substantial amount of TIF, and we'll show you the bond issue next, and then you'll be able to see the excess TIF funds that you'll have to help pay for other projects in serving or benefiting the TIF area that you guys define at some point in time. Any questions on the TIF stream?
Heidi?
Yeah.
Does SB1 have any impact on this, or is that all taken into account here?
So, yeah, SEA 1, because this is all commercial in nature, it will not have an effect on the assessed value side of the equation. The tax rate is what could be affected. So naturally with SEA 1, what will happen for the county and also the city is that AVs will go down and tax rates will come up. Well, there's also a part of the SEA 1 legislation that the DLGF gets the right to, for the TIF areas, adjust the tax rate, so the TIF areas don't benefit from that increased tax rate. And so what we are showing here is the tax rate staying at the 2026 level. So it should stay around the 2026 level. We'll see how that actually comes to fruition. But that's currently what is in SEA 1. So no is the answer. To flip to page 6. So again, these bonds would be payable from the Lehigh TIF. You guys have approved these bonds already through a resolution that was passed when we did the BOT loan. Whenever you do a BOT short-term loan, you have to also approve the long-term bonds to take it out at the same time. That's standard procedure. And so you have approved these bonds up to this point. In addition to the TIF, there is a property tax backup on it. There is no anticipation to ever levy a property tax to pay for these bonds, but that property tax backup allows us to get the lowest interest rate possible on the deal. So it's what we call a credit enhancement. So they will be TIF with a property tax backup bond issue. That again matters to the folks, the banks that are looking to potentially buy this bond issue. But we will not ever plan to levy for this bond issue. And that's something we have to prove to the legal counsel as well. So page 6 lays out several different things. The top line items where it says net proceeds available for redemption of the 2024 BOT loan, that shows you the principal payoff amount of a little over $5 million, and then also the interest that has to be paid off as well. We have these bonds assumed to be issued in April, the end of April. So this is the interest estimated from basically the last payment February 1st until April 30th of closing. If that closing date adjusts, then obviously that interest adjusts a little bit as well. One thing you would notice if you look back at the original BOT loan that was issued was $5,196,450. Well, a portion of that was not needed and was not drawn. So the amount of principal that will actually need to be repaid is this lesser amount of $5,075,610. So that's good. We actually put that cash back down here in this 226. So the amount of payoff if we close April 30th is $5,164,330. That number stays what it is. And then we have 2 different bond scenarios here for you. This will be dependent on the purchaser of the bonds. The legal documents that were approved, the bond resolution allows for a debt service reserve fund. Essentially what a debt service reserve fund is monies that are set aside at closing, that if the TIF came in less than what we're estimating for some reason, then you would tap the debt service reserve fund first before you levy the property tax. Well, we have a very high level of coverage here, so we're hoping that if We decided to work with local banks that they could understand Lehigh and how well of a company they are, and then maybe not have to have a debt service reserve, or maybe have a 6-month reserve instead of a full reserve. So in scenario 1 here, we are showing like the worst case is equal to maximum annual debt service. So it's a little over 1.7 million of funds that would need to be set aside at closing. Those stay there through the life of the bond issue, and then if they are never used, which is the goal, they would be used to pay the final bond payments on the bonds. So they do sit there for the term of the bonds, but they do get used at the end. So that's, again, the difference between scenario 1 and scenario 2. The allowance for underwriter's discount or purchaser's fee is just a bank-related fee for the bank. And then allowance for cost of issuance is there. You can see it's a little around $75,000 is what we're anticipating for professional fees. The professional fees get paid through the bonds, the bond proceeds. So that's not coming out of your cash, it's coming out of bond proceeds. So you can see there, those are the total illustrative project costs on the top. The bottom part is the funding, which that top line item is the TIF bonds. These will be taxable TIF bonds, and the reason for that is because you plan to sell the building. And when you sell that building to a private entity, that kicks it to be taxable in nature instead of tax exempt. And so they will be taxable. Really the main thing with that is that the interest rate could potentially be a little bit higher than a tax exempt rate. So, but it is what it is, because you guys, the goal is to sell that building, so. And then the last line item there is funds on hand. Again, that is made up of excess bonds that were issued at closing that were not tapped. So basically construction funds that were never used, those will get put in back into the bond issue as a funding source. So the next couple of schedules, the next schedule on page 7 will show you the amortization schedule for that $6.8 million bond issue. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So right now we have this structured as an 8-year bond issue. We ideally want to stay under a 10-year bond issue. Really, local banks, if that's who we are going to talk to, will want a 10-year term or less. That's their sweet spot. So we have currently structured this as an 8-year term. You can see right now that based on our pricing director's guidance, taxable rate would be around 5.5%. And you can see what the annual payment is on the right-hand side. The annual payment, you'll see we do have increasing over time. That is to follow along with the TIF revenue stream that we are estimating. So the interest rate is fixed at closing, but the payments we have structured to follow along with the TIF stream, which you'll see better on the next page. If you want to flip to page 8. Page 8 was what kind of brings it all together, in my personal opinion. On page 8, the far left-hand column is, again, the TIF revenue stream coming in. We do earmark 5,000 of that TIF that's coming in to be set aside to pay for TIF reporting requirements from the state. So we do take that off the top. And then you get your net TIF revenue stream. We take that, and then we structured this debt service, which is that principal and interest payment. We structured that to around 200% coverage, which is what drove the 8-year term. You have the flexibility to take the term of the bonds out longer, but because the TIF revenue stream is so strong and we know it's happening and it's in the mix already, we're just waiting for those abatements to roll off, we feel very secure that 200% coverage should satisfy any local bank. So that estimated tax increment remaining column, that is what you guys have to work with on an annual basis for other projects and serving or benefiting the TIF areas. So you have more work to do, more projects to develop. So page 8 shows you that higher debt service stream because of the debt service reserve fund needing to be funded. The next 2 pages are the same. It just is a smaller bond issue with that debt service reserve fund not being needed. So that's really the structure of the schedules. You can see 9 is just a smaller bond issue, $5 million bond issue. Still a 5.5% interest rate. I think it's a 7.5-year term. And then page 10 is just that same comparison schedule with a smaller bond issue. Again, we structured both of them to 200% coverage. And those are all things, again, that we'll negotiate with the bank, assuming that's the route you guys want to go. And that's something that, the bond sale method is something we'll work through with Jeff on really kind of the best approach, or if you guys have guidance for us. We can do RFPs out to local banks to see what kind of interest rates they would provide you, and then go from there, if that's how you prefer to proceed. So, with that, I know it's a lot of information at once. What questions can I answer?
Heidi, on page 6, on the allowance for debt service reserve,
Yeah.
how is that calculated? Is that the interest over the term of the loan?
So the debt service reserve is equal to the maximum annual debt service. So if you flip to the amortization schedule on the following page, you can see the largest annual debt service payment,
Which page are you on?
page 7,
All right,
on the far right-hand side.
yeah,
That is your principal plus interest that's due on an annual basis. Debt service reserve funds are calculated based off of that. So right now, we have it based off of maximum annual debt service. We can also do, and what's in the legal documents is that what's called a 3-prong test to set the debt service reserve fund. That is a test that you do the lesser of 10% of the par amount, maximum annual debt service, or the average, 125% of the average over the life of the bond issue.
okay.
But probably what I would suggest that we do, if we do an RFP to local banks, is kind of leave it up to the banks to tell us what they will require. Because, I mean, we definitely have the allowance to do it, but ideally, it would be 6 months or less, would be my goal, just because the coverage is so high. And again, the development's already in place that TIF's being generated from. It's just literally the abatements rolling off that we're waiting for to happen, so.
Okay, second question.
Yeah.
What happens, we get the bond issue, pay off, ruin bomb, and then we sell the building? What happens to the bond?
Yes, that's a great question. So one of the terms in an RFP out to local banks is optional redemption provisions, basically the payoff terms.
Basically, they're callable?
Yes, they're callable. And so, again, with you guys, you will want the most flexibility to be able to pay those off as soon as the building sells. So if we could just do like a 30-day notice with no term, that would be the ideal structure. Sometimes you will have to pay a little bit higher interest rate for more flexibility with the call provisions to be able to pay it off early. This is, again, like a 7 or 8 year bond issue. A standard provision would probably be a 5-year call. And then you would get maybe a better interest rate for a 5-year call, but I know you guys are working really hard to get the building sold, so I think that it would make sense to pay maybe a slightly higher interest rate to have that flexibility to pay those bonds off as soon as it's sold.
Now, is the building serving as collateral for these bonds?
No.
Or just a financing?
No, the building is not on the hook at all for the bond issue. We are not assuming any of the TIF either from that building, obviously, because you guys own it, so it's not paying any taxes yet. And so, no, the building is not any collateral. It's the TIF from Lehigh and the property tax backup of the county. Yeah.
The 198% actually protects the whole thing.
Right, yeah, and you can see that coverage, how much, again, excess TIF there is. So, even if our estimates were off by a little bit, there's still plenty of coverage. Yeah.
A lot of good questions.
Good presentation, Heidi.
Thank you. Any other questions? So basically from here, again, because you've approved the bonds already, we really just need to start that bond sale process and If you want to start with doing an RFP to local banks and go that route, we'll get that put together. We'll gather a list of banks from you guys that you want to provide that to, and then, see what results we get. And then we'll talk to our pricing director to make sure they seem reasonable to other sale options and go from there.
Well, speaking for a local bank, we would be interested in
Great,
part of these bonds.
okay.
Talked to Shay a little bit already, and I think so. He's said the same thing probably, so.
Yep.
So if everyone wants to send me, banks that you think might be interested and a contact person there, I'll collect it all, send it all to Heidi.
Yep.
I've got 2 or 3 regional banks in mind who I think might be interested as well, so.
We do typically send it to a list of folks that we know are interested in this type of bond as well, down to even like just banks that are interested in taxable interest,
All right.
First Farmers has the BOT loan right now, so.
Any further questions or conversations?
What action do you need?
No action really.
No, there's no action again because you've approved the bonds already, so it's just
Right.
more informational, see what questions you guys have. Just catch everybody up to speed.
Rick, Jeff, Dan, any questions?
The thing I was wondering about, I don't know whether Jeff covered it or not, but we just come back from that AIC conference, and you're talking about this TIF district with personal property, real property.
Yeah.
That is, what is it, in 28, anything below $2 million is not gonna be taxed.
Right,
At the moment.
so that's equipment, yeah, so, there are a couple of, lingering items out there in the legislature related to personal property, which is the equipment within the building. One thing that protects you guys from all of those is that it is in a TIF area already. If you create a brand new TIF area today, a company comes in, personal property is a part of it, the depreciation percentages can go below the 30% floor that's currently in place. But for Lehigh, they have to continue to stay at the 30% floor because they were in an already existing TIF area. And then the other piece that you were talking about is, yes, any business in the state that has 2 million of equipment value, replacement value or less, they will no longer pay any property taxes on their personal property. Lehigh's levels of investment are way beyond that, so. But yeah, it is a big hit.
On that, but this SB1, it's clear as mud at this moment.
Yeah,
It's clear as mud.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's things on the floor, the house floor right now, that we're not even gonna know for 2 months.
well, they're supposed to be done by the end of this month, so we'll see. Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess the one thing that I was concerned about is your income estimates.
okay,
I realize on your real property, those are going to be very accurate. I don't have any question on those. On the personal property side of it, if Lehigh's past actions has been any indication of what they will do, as these abatements roll off in this property, then they have the ability to decommission that, and then there is no tax collected on that. They've already did that once before this ever got started. So how much of this property, personal property, as the abatements go off that generates your income stream you're talking about, how much of that can they just ultimately say, all right, we are decommissioning that, it will no longer be on the property tax roll, personal property tax roll.
yeah,
So I
luckily,
know they had to change the beginning
Yeah.
structure of the abatement due to that, because they decommissioned some equipment and it made it where it wouldn't even generate enough where the county would actually, was gonna lose a significant amount of money right in the get-go.
yeah,
And I anticipate personally that that's how they're gonna play the game going forward, because they're a multinational company, and they've got attorneys and accountants that are, that's their livelihood, is they're probably paying on commission
Yeah.
how much they save.
right.
And
Well-
that is a big concern for me, is that your income stream estimates on the personal property side of it, business personal property, how much those cannot be factual at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's-
I would like to be some more information.
Yeah, that's a good question, and one thing that I would just, quickly point out is that, for the personal property, is that the last abatement doesn't roll off until 2035, And we do have these bonds, their last payment is in 2034. So that should give you some level of additional comfort that at least, you know, the bonds will be paid off by the time all of their abatements roll off. Will they piece by piece, you know?
When does the first abatement that they have roll off? What year does that happen?
For personal property, I do not
I know, I
have
think
that
you
deep.
stated that they were gonna roll off in increments between now and 2035.
For the real, if, I assume that their personal property and their real property somewhat align with each other. So their first two abatements on their real property they were granted in 2023. And, they do have a 10-year term, so 2033. So again, and the last payments are in 2034. So again, that should give you some comfort that the TIF will be there. I think definitely.
Sounds like there'll be plenty of funds to pay the bond, that's not
Yeah.
what the issue is, but I'm just saying for future commitments.
Subsequent
this board
projects.
decides to make based off of those estimates.
Yeah.
If they do cut that off and then there's no tax collected, those estimates of income will not be accurate. And so if they overcommit to long-term projects, they could end up
Yeah.
being short later.
And I would,
My point.
yeah, I would say if there are any future projects that they definitely, if they want them done, that's where we can put some provisions in place to like hold their feet to the fire so they can do that. Again, I don't know if they are asking for anything, but I would say that even if it's an infrastructure project, public infrastructure project that they need for some reason that you guys decide you want to fund, that's when we put like a minimum taxpayer payment or something behind it, or that they are on the hook if they decide to drop their taxes for some reason, where they would cover their shortfall. So there are things that we can do in the future. Again, if they are the ones asking for future incentive, definitely something good to keep in mind if they do come back for more abatements and things as well, that we can put some clawbacks in place just to ensure that they don't do that for the safety of the TIF. So, yeah, all great points.
Jeff, I guess I'd add that
Yeah.
my understanding was that the equipment that they decommissioned was the equipment that became obsolete once they had installed the new equipment, so.
I understand that, but the way things work in this day and age, and accounting as it is, there's nothing to say that this stuff they just installed couldn't be obsolete in 5 years in their mind. We don't know that, but that concerns me with their past action and what they have available to them, because they're gonna utilize what's best for Lehigh. They have no concern with what's the best for the TIF or Lawrence County or the RDC. Their number one outlook is their shareholders. We are the last thing they consider.
All right,
I think the one you're talking about, it was in that last one where we had to modify that abatement.
yeah.
That's what brought this to my attention, was when the abatement had to be modified, the structure where it was, what it started off with a 100% abatement, then went 98, well, they made it 99 because they decommissioned a bunch of equipment in the original.
Right, yeah, they got rid of old to bring in new to be able to do that, yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what's brought all this to my attention, and that's my concern. There may be very easily ways of protecting, but those needs to be in place so that we are protected. We don't want
Yeah.
to pay twice in essence.
Yeah.
All right.
That's what I'm saying, too, but-
Okay, well, good conversation. So our action item will be, think about who potential buyers of these bonds are, send me that contact info.
Yep.
And Heidi will get things set out there.
That's great.
Next item on our agenda is item number 5, discussion on real estate marketing. We've had discussion over the past couple of meetings about our fervent desire to get this building sold off as fast as we can. And so our discussion was, should we hire a commercial/industrial realtor? I reached out to 5 firms to ask if they would be interested. 2 of them responded. One of them has sent me information that is Cushman and Wakefield. The other one was Premier. Premier did come down and take a look at the building, but didn't provide me any written information. Both companies looked at comps to try to give us some idea of what they thought our chances are of selling or leasing the building. Both of them seem to be more inclined to think that we lease rather than sell. Although I assume our preference is to want to sell and get this thing off our hands as opposed to being landlords. But, you know, if the right project comes along with the right terms and offers the jobs and the wages, we certainly don't want to refuse to consider that. So, between the two companies, like I say, we've got a listing agreement provided by the good folks at Cushman. Cushman is, you know, they're top tier for this kind of thing. They're well-known, national network. They will, in their proposal, they indicate they'll do some marketing on the building for us right away, try to get some things out here. And,
Jeff, are you concerned about, I did a little research on Cushman, and they've got a couple of lawsuits against them in different markets.
I wasn't aware of that, but I'm not surprised. As big as they are, Jack, and they're in every market. And
The one I remember was price fixing on lease payments.
I can't address that, so I don't know. I can go out.
It's out there.
It's out there, so I could reach out to the others again and ask for more. See if
I know they're a multinational corporation big, so I don't think those lawsuits would have any effect on our markets or our area. I think one of them was in New York.
Okay.
I don't recall.
Would,
Have you dealt with them before in the past in other organizations?
I've never been on this side of a relationship with Cushman trying to sell a building like this, so I can't speak from that perspective. But when we go out, you know, around the country speaking to site selectors and industrial clients, Cushman's always on the list of people we talk to. So, you know, we go to the Atlanta market or the Chicago market, and we talk to their specialist in industrial sites and buildings. We tell them this is what we've got in southern Indiana or Lawrence County, as the case may be, and try to make sure we're front of mind with them. So, JLL, Cushman, CBRE, those in my mind are the big three.
But only two responded.
But yeah, the other two did not respond. So I would be comfortable going with Kevin Archer from Cushman on this one. Now, this agreement does mean that we're also agreeing to pay them, you know, in terms, if we do sell the building, I think their commission is 6%. So that's just something to be aware as we look through the numbers.
$342,000 plus or minus.
There you go.
5% if they don't have another broker involved.
There you go. You read the fine print. Good
I
job.
did.
I appreciate that.
So I'll go ahead and make that motion.
All right. So for Cushman, we've got a motion from Jack. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we got a second from Wally. Is there any further discussion on this one? All right, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Abstention, like sign. Motion passes 4-0. So thank you all again. So next up, we're coming to the environmental management consultants who we've been talking about, and so let's been talking about these guys for a few months now. These are the folks who we are in conversation with to have them do the hazardous material assessment on the building at 621 West Main Street of Mitchell. Their number they've come up with is an estimate of about $20,637 is their estimated lump sum for carrying out their lead-based paint, asbestos, and mercury inspections. They had also promised to give us an example of a letter to send to the private property owner to get permission to go on property. I didn't realize until earlier this week that I was supposed to have given them the contact information, so I did that very late in the game, and they weren't able to give me that letter yet, but they're working on it. So, any comments? Rex, you've kind of been our leader on this.
You're
Does
kind of the
that price
expert.
seem right?
Well, I read through everything. Of course, the price kind of came in within the range that I kind of had given last time, which was 10 to 25. I thought maybe it would come in around 15. It's a little bit more than that. So the only thing that I saw in there that I questioned a little bit was the time that they would spend in the building, which they said up to 4 days, which seems a little lengthy to me for the size building that it is. But otherwise, the price is probably comparable, you know, at this point in time. It's been 6 years since I've priced one of those, so, you know, I'm sure all the costs have went up in that period of time. So, especially hourly wage, you know, for those people who go in there. And they do send out to, they don't do in-house labs, so it's all sent out to a separate lab that does all that work. There was an option there for the lead paint of doing the X-rays versus the sending to a lab. So if I do it with their X-rays, there's no additional costs on that. But if it's done by lab, I think it's additional $125 per, what is it, per sample?
$25 per sample. is
25,
what it said,
Yeah,
yeah.
25 and 40, wasn't it?
So is X-ray as accurate as
Well,
lab
you know,
testing?
that's something that's kind of new, I think. You know, since I was involved with it, they always took the particulate samples from the building for the labs. So I'm assuming, and maybe this, you know, is a question to ask them, is to make sure that that's acceptable, you know, by the CR of the state, you know, that I believe it is. I believe they mentioned in there that it, you know, that it all falls in line with the CRs required from the state for, you know, certification that the information that they give from that, you know, is valid. So I would say if it is valid, I'm as good with an X-ray as I would be with, you know, doing the particulate samples. You know, it should be a quicker process for them, you know, to be able to do that. Otherwise, other than the time that they said that they would be spending it in the building, you know, would be the only thing. Oh, but there was, I think, in last time that you'd mentioned, he was wanting to know if they were insured, and I don't think they really stated anything in there about their bonding, you know, as far as being bonded, you know. I didn't see it, but
I will ask them about bonding.
Well,
yeah.
that'd be important if one of their employees got hurt
Well,
inside the building.
Yeah, I don't know how all the liabilities would fall in that case, you know, of course.
Everybody.
Yeah, you know, we're not the owners, but we're the ones that's contracting with them, so that would be, you know, it would probably fall on us as well.
We'd be in the line of fire.
Probably, you know, so, yeah. So, yeah, it would be worthwhile to ask, you know, to make sure that, you know, they can provide, you know,
Okay.
certificate of bonding.
So you want to make a proposal to approve, you want to make a motion to approve this proposal, provided they can assure us that they have insurance and bonding?
Yes, I can make that.
All right.
Second that.
All right, so we've got Rex and Jack for the motion and the second. Any further conversation? If not, we'll go with the vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Abstention, like sign. Motion passes 4-0. That concludes item number 6. Item number 7 is other business. Michelle, do we have other business? Okay. Well, as you probably saw from the fact that pieces of the attachments came out in about 4 different emails, we were gathering the information on the fly, and I wasn't sure what we got covered. So, all right. Anything further to come before the redevelopment commission at this time?
We just have the TIF reporting that's coming up. If you guys want, would like our assistance with the TIF management report, April 15th.
All right. Are we all good with paying the fees to do the TIF reporting for the state?
It's required, yes.
There's now 5, well, as of last year, there was 5, so I can get you that a separate agreement for that, it'll be time and expensive as well, but we assisted you guys last year with all of them.
All right.
If you're saying yes, we'll send you the
Motion
information
for that.
request.
Looking for a motion, yeah.
I'll make that motion.
All right. All right, so we've got a motion and a second to go ahead and pre-approve the Baker Tilly study on the TIF adjustment.
That does have to be presented to the council before April 15th, so we'll just need to time that right. We'll be in touch.
Okay. We have a meeting February 20th,
What's one after that?
tomorrow, and then Thursday, March.
Okay. All right, then, we'll be in touch.
All right. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Abstention, like sign. The motion passes 4-0. All right. Motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Got a motion?
Second.
Got a second? All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes.